I want to go to Gal first. They gave Liverpool. I know Spurs had a little bit of a comeback, miniature comeback in the 70th minutes, but they got another beatdown yesterday, Tottenham, didn't they, Gal?
Ange Postecoglou once again showing that he's not going to change his ways. He's gonna continue. He tried to slightly. He tried to improve his setup, and he tried to do something, but it didn't work. He got another beatdown, and I think that at this point in the season, they've just accepted that they're not going to get top four, and those players. You're going to blame the players, but I think it's on Ange. The way that these guys have dropped off from winning 10 games in a row to start the season to now basically having a 50-50 for the rest of the season, he needs to take a hard look at himself and say to himself, what have I done wrong? You can talk about injuries, you can talk about players being out of form, but Ange Postecoglou, when you first came in, we said, oh, what he's doing is great, but he never adapted. He never showed the tactical flexibility to win these games. And this game against Liverpool, after 45 minutes, it was after 50 minutes, it was done. Those two goals were consolation goals in the 72nd, 77th minute, and it was just fantasy stats for people who love fantasy. As for Liverpool, where was this versus Crystal Palace? Where was this versus West Ham? You guys should be looking at yourselves and saying to yourselves, why did you guys not show this level of effort versus Crystal Palace and West Ham? Maybe you could have still won this league. Maybe it is because it's a home game and it's do it for Klopp and it's at Anfield. You guys rose to the occasion. But I would be pissed off if I'm a Liverpool fan, just as much as I would be pissed off if I'm a Spurs fan losing 4 in a row. But at this point, both fan bases, their season's pretty much done. Liverpool's going to finish third. Tottenham, who knows where they're going to finish. You just need to focus on winning your next game, because if you don't beat Burnley, that's going to be an utter embarrassment. And if Ange Postecoglou finishes the season off poorly and he starts the season off poorly next season, his job could be at risk in the second season. At this point, he doesn't look like he seems to be interested in addressing the issues that are at hand. He's just continuously saying, I need to keep to my philosophy. I think this weekend was the first eye-opener he had where he said, you know what, I might need to change something.
Miguel, can I ask you, where was Ange supposed to change something? Because a lot of people sit here, and I'm sick of it, I'm not going to lie, sit here and say, Ange showed that he has no tactical adaptability. He should have done this, he should have done that. Actually, sorry, they don't say what they should have done. They just say, oh, he should have adapted. What is he supposed to adapt to?
Let me tell you. For the last 4 weeks, he showed that he continuously said that set pieces were not an issue, and then he did not address it after the Newcastle game, after the Arsenal game, after the and then he went on to the Chelsea game, had the same problem. His structure throughout those games, continuously, just one ball over the top. Boom, you're done. We've seen it with Kai Havertz over the top to Bukayo Saka. We've seen it to Isaac in the Newcastle game. Continuously, one ball over the top destroys that whole back line. How can one ball destroy a whole back line that's supposed to be one of the best back lines in a couple of years? And also defensively, do you know they've conceded the fourth most goals conceded by a Tottenham team in the Premier League? So if that is not enough evidence for you that he needs to make changes, what else is?
How many goals in the last few games have they conceded from a counterattack?
I can't tell you exactly every single one. I just gave you multiple examples over multiple games.
You gave me the Saka one, and that one I agree with. When you look at their last 3 games, that was the only one.
And Isaac over the top.
Yeah, of course. That game that got destroyed 4-0. I'm talking about since that game.
They've gotten destroyed by Arsenal. They got destroyed by Chelsea. They got destroyed by Newcastle and Liverpool on the bounce.
Yeah, but they didn't. Okay, so they didn't get destroyed from counterattacks in the last 3 games.
In the Fulham game,
in many different ways.
2 goals from counterattacks.
But 1 second, I don't know why you're doing this at this moment in time, because I've literally broken it down for you. They've been
because you're waffling, Miguel. You just said set pieces, and when I asked you how many
counterattacks, and their structure has been off from the jump. So he needed to address that. He went. I don't necessarily think it's structure game after game.
Yeah, the last 3 games. I'm gonna let Henry go in a second because that's his team. Here's the thing. I defend Ange and I don't defend Spurs because I've been critical of Ange when it comes to the high line, and I've said it a lot throughout the season. I said his lack of adaptability actually pisses me off. But when you look at the last 3 games, he didn't lose because of a high line. He lost because of a lack of quality. He lost because his team can't box defend. You were right when you said that they're not good on set pieces, but you need a set piece coach for that. The manager has coaches working under him. There's an attacking coach, a defensive coach, a goalkeeper coach. I understand all of them work under him, and at the end of the day, you're going to blame him for certain things like that. But we can't be disingenuous and say his system has been found out when the last 3 games they lost wasn't because of the system. It was because of the lack of quality that they have in the front line. Yesterday, Dan was speaking about Emerson Royale not being good enough. And they're like, oh, don't talk about him, talk about Ange. How can I not talk about the defender who led to 2 goals out of the 4? He didn't mark Salah on the far post, and he gave away the ball for the...
Staffy, respectfully, when you're conceding 4, 3, 2, 4, you're telling me it's a problem with the attack. I'm sorry, it's not.
I said it's a lack of quality.
1 second. It's a lack of structure and defensive awareness.
No, it is not, Igal. No, it is not, Igal. Yesterday, 2 balls over the top to Richarlison. He didn't finish his chances. If they score that, we're talking about Van Dijk. Son goes one-on-one with Alisson, misses a chance. And then on the other hand, Darwin Núñez goes one-on-one with the goalkeeper, misses his chance. One of them, they're saying good save, which is Alisson. The other one, oh, it's poor finishing. It's agendas. The Spurs players are not good enough. It's just so simple.
Guys,
you could be right about the players not being good enough, but these same players won 10 out of their first 10 games. These same players had the top 4 basically almost wrapped up and threw it away.
And you said he overachieved. You were one of the people that said he overachieved. So why are you using that as a metric now?
Staffy,
don't just talk too much. Igal, no, this is what you do, Igal. You talk too much and you make so many points that we never revisit. You said they won I don't know how many of their first beginning games, and you said that was them overachieving. However it is, I don't care. They started magnificent. Yes, I understand that. But
because they were never going to be in a title race. That's why.
So how can you use that as a metric when you said that was an overachievement? You never said that was sustainable.
I'm not using it as a metric. I'm showing you how they've dropped off in many different areas of their game. You can talk about their attack. You can talk about their attack being poor, but you have Tottenham fans here right now. They'll tell you structurally they've not looked as solid. They've not looked as solid defensively in the last 10 games. Also, you can criticize the attack. You can say they have a lack of quality, but the manager has them in these games, and he's not making the right decisions. Continuously, the same issues are arising game after game.
They were dominating possession in most of these games.
Guys, let me just jump in the middle of this debate. It's really, really good. Henry, where do you stand on this debate? Listen to what Igal was said and what Staffy said. Ironically, a United fan and an Arsenal fan. How do you see it from a Spurs perspective?
What I would say is 2 things can be right at once. Yes, we are tactically naive in the fact that we are one of the worst teams in the league at defending set pieces, but we have a massive drop-off in the lack of quality. Yeah, for instance, Emerson Royale playing left back. If you look at the ball that goes into the front to the far post of Mohamed Salah, I can pretty much put a 90% chance if that is Destiny Udogie, he wins that header, because he's better at man marking. That doesn't necessarily mean that Ange Postecoglou can't be critiqued and be criticised. You might as well have copy and pasted the Brighton away game and put that Liverpool game. It's the exact same game. We went 4-0 down due to being outclassed. And then around the 68th minute in the Brighton game and around the 71st minute in the Liverpool game, we started playing football. I think it's a mixture of things. I think I said this to you and Terry on Friday doing the squad. I think a lot of these players aren't playing for him. Like the drop off in quality between James Maddison, between Son, the only one of our front line that actually looked up for that game was Richarlison. And maybe you could say because he's played in a Merseyside derby before and because he's from Everton. But there's the second part of the argument is there is no tactical change from Ange. Like I'll give you an example, right? We had 15 days to prepare for the Arsenal game. Now, before that game going into it, I think we conceded 5 goals from the last 4 set pieces or something, some crazy stat like that. Arsenal weren't even at the races in terms of their quality, and they exploited our weaknesses. Ange Postecoglou has got to change for me a number of things. The defensive line has got to be dropped 7 to 8 yards deeper because we are so vulnerable to being counterattacked. But also, we need better quality in the players to be able to play Ange ball. The reason why the first 10 games we, I guess you could say, overachieved was because not a lot of teams that play Ange ball, and we had a fully fit squad. We had a fully fit Maddison firing all cylinders. We had Van de Ven before a hamstring injury. We had Destiny Udogie and Porro without being running to the ground, having to play every minute of a game. But that doesn't necessarily mean you can't criticise Ange ball. If we lose to Burnley, right, I believe there will be serious pressure on Ange Postecoglou. like serious pressure, because you then go into the next game, which will be Manchester City. And let's be honest, Nobbins will probably agree, they're going to steamroll us. Manchester City,
I hope so.
I will say right now, will score 4 goals at our stadium. They will score 4 goals because Guardiola will just say, hang on, we've got Ruben Diaz, who's very good in the air. We've got John Stones, we've got Haaland, and we can't defend set pieces. So Ange, as great as the argument is, the quality is poor, and yes, it is in some areas, he's not changing. This doesn't seem to be a plan B. And this has been his managerial career throughout the last 22 years he's been a manager. When you go back and look at his World Cup games, when he was the Australian coach, the play style, the style of play is exactly the same. Go back and look at Celtic or when he was in Japan. So unless we buy better players that can play Ange ball, we're never really going to see Ange Postecoglou excel, because the plan B, we just get ripped apart because there isn't one. So 2 things can be right. What I will say is, we lose to Burnley. Our fan base, Kate will tell you, our fan base is one of the most toxic fan bases on social media. If we lose, everyone, I don't know what Kate's opinion is, everyone will be Ange out. Now, I'm not Ange out, but I'm struggling to argue with the people that are Ange in, because right now I don't see any progress. And this, if you look at our results since the Aston Villa game, which was 13th of March, 12th of March, if you look at our results, they're up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down. And that was what Arteta was like in his first year. That was what Klopp was like in his first year. Guardiola finished 3rd. He had a lot of ups and downs. And then what did all 3 managers do? They got their players and they started playing. The big question is Daniel Levy going to give Ange Postecoglou the players he needs? If he's not, we might as well get rid of Ange now and start again.
The one thing I won't accept is a comparison to Arteta, because Arteta, even in his first season when he was poor, one second. I don't know about. One second. Let me speak, guys.
Not my Arteta.
1 second. The reason why I will not accept that is because even when Arteta did not have his players, he still set up the team tactically in a way to try to beat that opponent, and he changed the way he played. He actually played pragmatic to win us our FA Cup the first season, and we played a lot on the counter, and we're very defensive.
Can you not say we played? Can you not say we're playing well? We're averaging, I think we got the 4th highest possession in the Premier League behind Brighton, City, and Arsenal. But when we get to the final 30, Gal, we have nothing. Son's fallen off a cliff. Brennan Johnson, Terry will tell you, I was the only one when we was recording the squad that says Brennan Johnson can take a player on. That game, he might as well have not turned up.
That might be one of your biggest issues. But other issues that are happening in your squad, like your structure, like your high line, like
so what in the structure can he change against the Burnley game?
One second. I'm not saying words. I'm actually addressing real defensive issues that they have.
Break down these words, Igal. Break them down.
Respectfully, let me get my point across, and then you can interject when I'm done.
I'm not interjecting. I'm asking you to break these down these words. I don't want to hear the same words.
But you don't even let me finish my point. So it's a minute point. If you're trying to challenge something, you don't even know what I'm going with.
Go ahead.
My point is to compare Ange to any other manager when he doesn't show that he's clearly not addressing the issues that you have at hand game after game is a false comparison. Because Arteta, even though we were poor and we had deficiencies in our attack, we had deficiencies in our midfield, we had deficiencies in our defense. For God's sakes, we had Mustafi and David Luiz out there. He still tried to play different ways, and he showed different tactical ways of play. Where Ange, he specifically himself said for majority of the season, he's not going to change his ways. And that's where I challenge him. And I say, you know what? We cannot make those comparisons because he's not yet showed the flexibility.
In terms of the quality,
what I would say is that there is some value in being stubborn. If you are a new manager, because Klopp did it with Liverpool, Pep did it at City. If you do stay consistent with that style of play, then you ultimately weed out players who out themselves as not being able to play that style. For example, I imagine there will be an upgrade in respect of Emerson Royale. I imagine there'll be an upgrade in terms of like some of the forward line. It happened with Klopp at Liverpool, it happened with Pep at City. He saw Zabaleta couldn't do it anymore, Sanya, Clichy, etc. So I take your point again. Maybe there could be some flexibility, but I think that there might be more value in identifying the weak links.
There's nothing wrong with keeping your philosophy and your principles, but when you're on a 4-game losing streak and you clearly see you have an injury crisis, you have to make adjustments in game.
Let me add to that. I got to add to that.
I want to get Kate's opinion, and I'll come back to you on that stuff. Sorry, Kate. Like, how do you view this debate? Like, where's your head at with this?
I just don't dare compare Arteta to Ange. Egal, wow, you've got a real romantic obsession with Arteta. It's quite cringe. It's not. We were
cringe. I told you why it's a false comparison.
It is cringe. It is a little bit cringe.
No.
I'm not gonna
When
lie.
somebody said do this, like,
Can
one
I
second.
speak now? Can I speak?
Okay,
Can I
okay,
speak?
go ahead. But when you're
Thank
wrong,
you.
I'm going to call you out.
Do you know what? In the first 10 games, we got 26 points, and in the next 24, we've got 32. I think had the games been more spread out, and we hadn't just had that block of sort of 10 games where we were sitting at the top of the table, and it had been more up and down, up and down, up and down, there wouldn't be this outcry on Ange. My view is he's not going to change. People can cry and say he's stubborn, he's this, he's that, and whatever, then that's fine. But he isn't going to change. He needs a better quality of player. Whether he'll get it is all down to Daniel Levy, which doesn't really bode particularly well. After Poch's first season, we were sitting in 5th and he was getting criticism from everybody. There's no patience in this fan base. As Emery said, there's just none. Everybody says at the start of the season, we just want to see us play some good attacking football. And we want, we've got to give this guy time. And already the Ange out brigade are screaming their heads off. I've had it all day today. It comes down to we need quality, not quantity this summer. And until we see what he's going to do this summer, we don't know what's going to happen. But I honestly can't see where the next win's coming from. I just can't. We should beat Burnley, but who knows? It's not a great place to be in, but it's going to be a painful project. It was always going to be a painful rebuild. We've still got so much deadwood left from years ago that are still at our team. So for me, it all looks at it's all going to be what happens in the summer, and see where we go from there.
Fair enough. I have to head off, bro. But I'm just gonna say this: if you guys want Ange Postecoglou to be a Premier League legend, all he has to do is beat Manchester City.
All right, I get what you're saying there. We
about Arsenal.
Yeah, listen, viewers, make sure like buttons are being hit. Make sure you are subscribing.
I just wanted to make a point, Terry. I'm sorry.
Yeah, go on. Finish that point and we'll move on.
Because he went. Igal is an absolute hypocrite for that. Because if you ask Igal what's his main criticism of Ten Hag, he will tell you that Ten Hag came in last season. Because I've heard him say that, saying that Ten Hag was a coward. He gave up his philosophy. He went pragmatic, this, and that. And that's the same stick now we're using on the opposite side to beat up managers that want to implement a philosophy, that want to play a style of play, that Nubbin said it perfectly. When you implement a style of play like that, you start to weed out the players that are not good enough. That is the criticism that I've had all along of Ten Hag. So when people say I'm a hypocrite, I don't give Ten Hag the same energy, it's because Ten Hag is literally the polar opposite of Ange. One accommodated for the players and cowered out. One of them said, no, I don't have the players, but I will continue to play my style of play until I get the good ones to basically learn how to play it. And those are the ones that are going to stay. And when he came out and said a few days ago, some sales will be made and not everyone will be here. That's him saying that some players are not good enough and eventually will be replaced. We can move on eventually to a stage where, okay, the team is now sustainable. For them to win something, he needs to add a little bit more tactical flexibility. I agree with that. Because if you want to be a Pep, you want to be an Arteta, you want to be a club, you want to be whoever's around, you need to have tactical flexibility. But we're not at that stage yet. We're at a stage of him figuring out the good players from the bad players, having them play a style, and then the ones that are not good are going to go. It's just the bad ones are going to go. It's just that simple.
I agree with that, and it's interesting because I've said that Ange has got to make changes, but I've had to be very careful how I word it. I'm talking about small, nuanced, intricate changes, not his overarching. His tweaks. No, it might be defensive line sits 2 yards further back. It might be, a bit more man-to-man marking on corners. I'm just making this up the top of my head right now because, I haven't personally delved into it that deep. But this idea that he should completely change the way he plays, I don't think that's true. And it's one of the reasons why I'm critical of Ten Hag. You can't play the way Ten Hag has done for 2 years and then suddenly go, right, now we're going to start to implement the new style. Because then you are starting again with the weeding out process.
Also on that, Terry, one last very, very quick thing.
You've
also got to critique him because you can't play a midfield of Bissouma, Bentancur and Sarr and have absolutely zero creativity and leave Maddison and Lo Celso on the bench.
I totally agree. And I think that's what I mean. I don't think Igal is wrong in everything that he said, but I totally get where Staffy is coming from as well. I think there's some definite balance that needs to be placed into this.